Well, good morning, and welcome to Sunday morning, June 14th at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Vero Beach. I'm Scott Alexander, minister of this congregation. We are a traditional brick and mortar congregation located at the corner of 16th Street and 27th Avenue in the beautiful city of Vero Beach, Florida, that serves the Treasure Coast. And we are also now an inclusive and progressive virtual congregation without walls that embraces and serves people from all over the United States and world who access us through the internet. Wherever you live and howsoever you are joining us this morning, welcome. We welcome you just as you come in all of your human particularity and charm, whether you are young or old, gay or straight, black or white, or some other wonderful shade of humanity. Whether you're feeling absolutely on top of the world this morning, or somewhat down in the dumps, or in between, we welcome you just as you are and hope that you have a good day with us. I have a few announcements before I begin. First, our sermon portion this morning is a chancel dialogue with the Reverend Crystal Boujol and Skylar Fitzcoy and myself, and I will welcome them a little more formally just before the chancel dialogue. And next Sunday, I will conduct the service with the Reverend Chuck McNatt, who will speak a sermon about Let Yourself Be. And we have special music next Sunday. Come to us every Sunday during the summer, 10 o'clock every Sunday morning in the summer. Welcome so much. Our service begins this morning with the introit by Elizabeth and Collins, We're Family.
Whether black or white, we're family. Let us celebrate our humanity. Whether black or white, we're family. Let us celebrate our humanity.
This morning, our opening words come from the great African-American Frederick Douglass, who lived between 1818 and 1895. He wrote, "Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are people who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its waters. This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. Find out what people will submit to," he goes on, "and you have found out the exact amount of injustice which will be imposed upon them." And then he ends, "The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress." Our opening hymn this morning, "We Are a Gentle, Angry People," written by a UU. If you're at home without the words, hum along. If you have the words that we sent you on Saturday in the email or this morning in the email, sing along and join us. We are a gentle, angry people.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
And join me in the lighting of our chalice with these words: the abundance of this place, the faith of its people, its songs of compassion and joy, will be wholeness and wisdom and indwelling light, that all may find here a constant home light in a world full of trouble and fear. And Kelly Stevens, our Director of Youth and Family Ministry, has the time for all ages. Kelly, welcome.
Good morning. For the Time for All Ages this morning, we're featuring 6 ways you can promote racial equality in your life and in your community. This article was inspired by Dana Brownlee. Number 1, get to know more people of color. The saying is, know me, like me, trust me. And trust building process starts by simply knowing people better. So get to know more people of color. Number 2, call a friend of color this week to discuss the current state of protest. It's important that friends demonstrate empathy and start a critical dialogue. Just as you'd call a friend if they had a death in the family or lost a job, you should reach out now as well. These incidences wear on the psyche of so many people as we worry not just for ourselves, but for our children and our broader community. It's important for friends to demonstrate not just compassion, but sincere interest in doing what they can to help. Number 3, join a diversity committee. If there isn't one, start one. If you're struggling to step outside your comfort zone, this is an easy way to take action. It doesn't take much effort to join a diversity committee. Here at the UUFVB, we have a Coalition for Racial Justice group. You can learn more about this group by calling the church office. Participating on a diversity committee doesn't just create opportunities to meet new people, it also provides an opportunity to learn a lot and begin to see issues from a different perspective. Number 4, talk to your kids about race. It's critically important that kids begin to learn about issues of race and equality early, so they can begin to develop their own awareness of injustice. While we may think these issues are purely adult ones, equality issues often show up for kids quite early on the playgrounds or in the cafeteria or in the classroom. Number 5, mentor a person of color. Don't wait for a mentoring program. Find a young person of color who is doing great things and take them under your wing. Number 6, support diversity. It's 2020. There's simply no reason for leaders of our community and workplace to not be diverse. If you value racial justice and human rights, then make it a point to vote for diverse leaders in your community and hire diversity in your businesses. Although there are many other ways we can promote racial equality, I hope that I have left you with some ideas to think about. Thank you so much for allowing me to share the Time for All Ages with you.
So now is the time in our service for the members and friends of our fellowship to express their financial commitment to the ongoing work in which this congregation shares. Now, every Sunday, when we are able to meet here in person at our facility in Vero Beach, we raise funds for a worthy community service organization here in the Treasure Coast. And that morning's recipient is, as it is every second Sunday of the month, the Food Pantry of Indian River County. And if you wish to donate to them, write a check to the Food Pantry of, to us, to the UUFVB, and in the memo line, put Food Pantry, and we'll make sure they get that. And at this time, when we are still doing just remote services, we remind all the members and friends who have been so generous that we need your continuing generosity and support. There's a place on our website, on the donate line. There's a yellow line across the top of the website. You can donate there. And if you let our bookkeeper know that you wish to have a pledge or a contribution from their credit card or checking account, just let her know that. And any contributions can be mailed into the UUFVB office at 1590 27th Avenue. And if you are visiting us either remotely or, on the internet, please don't feel under any obligation to make a gift this Sunday, for you are our guest. The morning offering is now gratefully received. Because we are a caring religious community, we pause each and every Sunday during our service to take a few moments to share the joys and the sorrows and the prayers that are on our hearts this morning. I have several. Many of you, of course, have a prayer for the people of America and the fact that all Black lives matter on your heart this morning. I know that so many of us are so deeply concerned about what is happening in our nation, and we'll be talking about that in our chancel dialogue later. My first joy and sorrow is a sorrow, and that is that yesterday I should say a few days ago, we lost our member Carl Rance, who was 93. He died very peacefully at Cleveland Clinic at the age of 93. Carl was an artist and a World War II veteran, a dear old man, and we shall miss him very, very much. We send all of our love to his wife Ellen and his entire extended family, and I light a chalice now in his memory. And on a much happier note, we received word yesterday that Paula Herger had very successful cancer surgery yesterday in Boston. The doctors believe they got all of the disease, and they're very optimistic about her future. We hope that she's able to return to Vero Beach in some period of time, but the news is very, very good about her surgery yesterday, and we are grateful for that, and she wants to thank all of you who prayed and sent healing thoughts. I know many of us did that yesterday. We have birthdays and anniversaries also to share. Birthdays this week from the congregation: Laura Driver, Jack Stiefel, Joseph Caldwell, Carla Gridley, and Sue Westwater. We wish you all a happy birthday this week. And anniversaries: Violante and Brian, and that's Violante and Brian Tui, Vin and Phyllis Hall, Dick and Denise Haight, Bruce and Teresa Farmer, and Jack and Kristen Jolly, all celebrating anniversaries this week. So now is the time in our service when I place stones in the water. When you're usually with us here in Vero Beach, you come up and do that, but I will symbolically do that for you now. And join me at home by calling to your heart and your mind all your prayers and the joys and the sorrows that are on your heart this day.
We
Our reading this morning comes from the famous 20th century African-American poet, writer, playwright, and social activist Langston Hughes. He wrote this powerful poem, Let America Be America Again, in 1935. Sadly, recent events in America make it as relevant and painful today as it was then. And Crystal and Skylar will share in this reading this morning.
Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain seeking a home where he himself is free. America was never America to me.
Let America be the dream, the dreamers dreamed. Let it be the great strong land of love, where never kings connive, nor tyrants scheme, that any man be crushed by one above. It was never America to me.
Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned, with no false patriotic wreath. But opportunity is real and life is free. Equality is in the air we breathe. There has never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free.
I am the poor white, fooled and pushed apart. I am the Negro bearing slavery's scars. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrant clutching the hope I seek, and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog, of mighty crush the weak.
I am the farmer, bondsman to the soil. I am the worker, sold to the machine. I am the Negro, servant to you all. I am the people, humble, hungry, mean, hungry yet today despite the dream, beaten yet today, oh pioneers. I am the man who never got ahead, the poorest worker bartered through the years.
Yet I'm the one who dreamt our basic dream in the old world while still a serf of kings, who dreamt a dream so strong, so brave, so true. And yet, its mighty daring sings in every brick and stone, in every furrow turned. That's made America the land it has become.
Who said the free? Not me. Surely not me. The millions on relief today? The millions shot down when we strike? The millions who have nothing for our pay? For all the dreams we've dreamed and all the songs we've sung and all the prayers we've held and all the flags we've hung? The millions who have nothing for our pay except the dream that's almost dead today.
Oh, let America be America again, the land that has never yet, or has never been yet, and yet must be, the land where every man is free, the land that's mine, the poor man's, Indians, Negroes, me, who made America, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain, must bring back our mighty dream again.
Sure, call me any ugly name you choose. The steel of freedom does not stain. From all those who live like leeches on the people's lives, we must take back our land again. America. Oh yes, I say it plain. America was never America to me. And yet, I swear this oath,
America will be.
All right.
such a way that has no end. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other and nothing more. And to be bold and to be brave, it is the thinking that the heart can still be saved, and the darkness can come quick. The danger's in the anger and not hanging on to it. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other and nothing more. And tell me what it is that you see. A world that's filled with endless possibilities. But heroes don't look like they used to. They look like you do. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other and nothing more. We are how we treat each other and nothing more. We are how we treat each other.
Now we're going to share in a chancel dialogue. The police murder of Mr. George Floyd of Minneapolis late last month has shocked, saddened, and angered all of us. The agonizing 8-minute videotape, which shows an indifferent white police officer, aided and abetted by 3 others, mercilessly choking the life out of this man lying in the curb begging for his life, has forced all of us to face in a new and unavoidable way the heinous brutality that has taken so many black lives over the centuries since slavery began in America 400 years ago in the year 1619. As the New York Times so powerfully pointed out in a special and lengthy historical and cultural analysis last summer, and last Friday I sent my sermon reflecting on this important document to you so that you can further explore its conclusions. As the newspaper spelled out in great detail, since its very beginnings, American culture has been poisoned by systematic racism and inequality. A shameful and ugly legacy America has now only begun to confront and address. This terrible police crime in Minneapolis has suddenly awakened not only the majority of the people of the United States, but much of humanity around the world as well, to the reality of deep-seated and systemic racial injustice and inequality in many cultures. And if there is any good news to be found here, it is that every day since the death of Mr. Floyd, hundreds of thousands of people of all races, ages, and backgrounds in countless cities and towns all across America and the world have gathered day after day, night after night, to peacefully protest this injustice. And the people have loudly demanded real and systemic cultural change. It seems finally like something important is stirring in America in regards to racial injustice. A CNN poll this week revealed that the issue of race relations has risen to the very top of the issues that now concern the American people, above the economy, above health care, even above the corona epidemic crisis. As one CNN commentator hopefully put it, this country is clearly on the move in relation to this issue. Is it possible that after generations of avoidance and indifference and denial, the American people have now, in the face of this heinous crime, reached some sort of a positive tipping point that will enable us, as a culture, to really begin to confront and address racial injustice and inequality? Is it too much to hope that out of this terrible injustice that is the death of Mr. Floyd and the other recently highly publicized deaths of other innocent African Americans will come real and substantive change for the better? Here this morning to help me answer these important questions are two wonderful members of our congregation. Schuyler Fitzcoy, who is a husband and a public school teacher here in our area, and the Reverend Crystal Boujol, who is a minister, community activist, and the leader and founder and executive director of the Gifford Youth Orchestra, a community organization whose mission is, and now I quote, "As a contribution to the idea of breaking the cycles of poverty, our mission is to provide education, experience, and training in various cultural and performing arts, including music, drama, dance, and the vocal arts for the youth of Gifford, Florida, and neighboring Indian River County communities, with a core focus on mastering string instruments." We are first in this dialogue going to hear from Schuyler and then from Crystal, and we are going to be addressing this morning the question in our chancel dialogue: so, what do we do now? Schuyler, welcome.
Thank you for having us. Why am I here today? Injustice. That's a pretty easy answer. Next question is, what can I say? And that's a more difficult question. I struggled with the idea of coming here today and sharing my opinions. When I work, I'm a school teacher. I teach kids about American government, how it operates, but more importantly, how it should operate. Inevitably, each year the kids ask me about my own personal political views, especially in years of presidential elections. I say to them, my opinions don't really matter that much. We're here to give you guys the tools you can build your own opinions, build your own views, and take actions upon those steps. I never want you guys as my students to be indoctrinated mini little Mr. Fitzcoys. I am a worrier by nature. I worry about what's going on in this country right now with the combined emergencies of COVID and the racial emergency that the killing of Mr. Floyd demonstrated to a horrified America. I even worried when Reverend Scott asked me to come talk today. I didn't know what to say, how honest I could be. I feared that if I got too passionate about the topic, I might be labeled as the angry black man, and no one would listen. I also worried that I might be literally preaching to the choir among the UU faithful, because here we have open minds who are willing to learn and grow. I worried about possible professional repercussions, because the worst thing you can be labeled is an, quote, activist. I also worried that I might be seen as some type of social justice fraud or pretender, because maybe I haven't done enough work. I can always do more for multiple movements, multiple causes that I'm passionate about. I worry, and I worry some more. Then it struck me. That dark cloud of worry is a perfect example of what it feels like to be black in America. No matter what you do, that cloud lingers. You might have moments of sunshine that break through, but at any moment, it can be snatched away from you. I've always been aware that I was black, because growing up, I had these things called mirrors. I also grew up with a black family, a black father, a black mother, and 3 black brothers. Family is incredibly important to me. My parents instilled in all of us 3 basic values. 1, hard work is rewarded, but make sure you work smarter and not harder. 2, your brain is the most important muscle you should flex. And 3, the most important one, you represent more than yourself when you're in public. What my parents meant by this was, my last name Fitzcoy is a reflection on them, so don't embarrass us. Through my life experiences, I've added a 4th value to that list. You must earn your success. And as a black American, you might have to work twice as hard to get half as much. When I was a child, I thought I knew about racism. It was something like the Pilgrims, something you studied in a history book, but not something to be lived. In school, we learned the highlights of black history. You know, there were slaves at one point in time, Lincoln freedom, Rosa Parks had, quote, tired feet, and Martin Luther King solved racism way back in the day. But it wasn't until I experienced it at an early age where I realized, oh wait, this is a lesson we continue to learn over and over again. I call this my Cornerstone Memory. When I was 6 years of age, my family went down south to go visit friends and family. On the way back home, we stopped off at a Shoney's restaurant in rural North Carolina. We walked into the restaurant, and the hostess greeted us with the phrase, "It's going to be a while before we can serve y'all." We understood, we sat down, and we waited, and waited, and waited. There were people after us who got seated almost immediately. And I couldn't wrap my head around why these people who just walked in get a table, but we don't. I was livid, hungry, and confused. Eventually, my parents, after over an hour of waiting, we decided, let's just go get drive-through. So we left. I didn't get what was going on, but to my parents, this was just another Saturday. I've been thinking and reflecting over the course of the past few days what the purpose of racism and white supremacy happens to be. The whole idea is to dehumanize or shrink the, quote, other, because it's much more easy to mistreat someone when they're not a human. And Reverend Scott touched on this earlier, talked about America needs to deal with its race problem. A problem we have is we often ignore the problem and just push it aside and say, well, we have to have a conversation about that, quote, at some time. I imagine our race problem in America as a litter box. In America, we have a stinky litter box. It has to be changed. You just can't push it into another room and close the door. It needs to be dealt with now. It's only a problem if you see it's a problem. And for too long, we've ignored it. I have experienced what I call the highlights of all type of racist stories. I've been called racial epithets. I've been followed in convenience stores. I've had the police weaponized against me. They've been called on me for loitering in a mall, which is what kids do in a mall. I've been told by people I was interested in dating, I can't date you because of what my parents would think. I've also been told the opposite. I brought you here to make my dad angry. I've heard, you're only in this school or at this spot because of affirmative action. I've been told, I'm not racist, you just can't take a joke. And then the one that is the most biting I've heard is, Skylar, you're not really black. You don't act black. You don't sound black. Like sounding black or acting black is a bad thing to be. I've been stopped 12 times by the police. Most of them are justifiable interactions because I was speeding or etc. 4 times, I have no clue why I was stopped. And 1 time, I've had weapons drawn on me while I was jogging. So this comes back to the big question of, what can I do? Through all of this, I still remain hopeful. I'm not bitter by my experiences. But I don't want future generations to endure what has happened in the past. I want them not to just live, I want them to thrive and flourish. Because we as humans pride ourselves with our capacity to learn, grow, and be better. But the key thing is, no one ever changes because they're comfortable. This discomfort we're feeling as a nation right now, live in it. Feel it. Don't run away from it. Stay in this discomfort. This is the only way we're going to change. But remember, the path to change is not a light switch. It's a journey. Thank you.
Thanks, Skylar. Crystal.
I am so glad that you're part of this discussion, Skylar.
Thank you.
I learned from you, and one of the things that I just learned is that I never had the black experience. You just described what I don't know anything about, or rather, I didn't know anything about. It wasn't my life. It's not the way I grew up. My early years were sheltered. My mom and dad came from New Orleans purposely to avoid all of the racial experiences they and their families had had in their past. So I led a very sheltered life. I knew I was Negro. I knew I was colored. I knew I was not African. Who wanted to be African? They run around in the dirt and they don't even speak English, for God's sake. But I was taught that I had to be twice as good. That was the incentive to learning. I had to be twice as good. And so I was. But they would not let me go to the South. There was an incident of some sort, and it was on the radio. I was 6 or 7 years old, and a man was lynched. I didn't know what the word lynch was, and so I asked. My dad told me what it was, and I said, why did they do that to him? And he said, because he wouldn't go to the back of the bus. Well, I'm in Los Angeles. I sit anywhere on the bus I want to. And I put my hand on my hip and I said, they won't make me go to the back of the bus. My mom and dad looked at each other, and I remember the look and the whole scene very well. And they said, almost in harmony, she ain't going. And what they meant was they were not going to take me to New Orleans because she ain't going, she doesn't know how to act. And that's how I was protected. They took my sister, they took my other sister, they took my younger brother. Every year, somebody went to New Orleans. I was 38 years old before I got to the South. And I saw it then. But I went back home and lived that sheltered life in Los Angeles. The things that happened racially those incidents that occurred were minor. I worked for I worked for the Federal Aviation Agency. Before it was FAA, I worked for Civil Aeronautics in Inglewood, and I worked overtime one night, and Inglewood had a rule, a law, that you had to be out of, Negroes had to be out of Inglewood before the sun went down. So I was sitting on the bus stop waiting for the bus. Police drove by, and I said, oh, they're going to ask me why am I here. They did, and I said, I just got off from work. Where do you work? I said, in that building right there. Okay, you'll be out in time. I said, I know it. Well, I knew that was going to happen. It was just a part of life. My children had some experiences. They were minor in my mind because I didn't understand the whole thing. I'd never been in the South. There was an occasion when, it's so silly, I hate to even mention it, but I joined an organization that wanted to have the Bandicamp girl in the little stores be a Negro girl. They used to have the bakery, the Bandicamp's bakery, and this girl in her Holland, a white girl with blonde hair, looking Dutch with her little hat and the short skirt and what have you. They were all white, and this group wanted some of them to be Negroes. So I met with this group. We practiced for weeks and weeks and weeks on how we were going to protest. And we learned how to walk across the driveway so the police wouldn't take us to jail. So I went to those meetings. My mom and dad were scared for me. They kept my children. They did the babysitting while I learned how to protest. And we went downtown on Wilshire Boulevard to actually have this protest. I'm walking around the building with my sign. I mean, I knew how to do this, and I got to the driveway, and I thought about the police and the dogs and going to jail and getting killed and my children being without a mother and my mom and dad being right that I shouldn't be out here doing it. I dropped the sign and ran to the nearest bus stop and went home because I was so chicken. I wouldn't have made it in the South. I wasn't strong enough. But when I moved to Florida, that's when I really understood that America was not the America I was raised to think it was. I didn't want to fold the flag anymore. I didn't want to stand still while they played the national anthem. I didn't even want to say a Pledge of Allegiance. And even when I say it today, I don't use the word under God. Coming to Florida was my education on what it means to be black in America. I had other words prepared to share with you today. I had all of this. It's about 30 pages. But what I do want to say to my congregation, to the UUFVB, thank you for being here when I got here. I would have been lost, totally lost. There wouldn't have been any place for, there wasn't any place for me to go. Thank goodness you were here. And you were having Friday night popcorn movies. Jack and Nancy Stiefel met me there. First thing Jack wanted to know is, what do you need from us? I said an apology. He gave me one. This church has been a haven for many marginal groups. When I joined, there was something called P, family, or
P-flag.
P-flag. I'd never heard of P-flag. You did your work well. You had groups for girls. You had parent groups to help girls who were pregnant or who were young mothers. You had social justice club. You had all the tables in the back, well, not here, but on 43rd Street, where folks signed up for various programs. Really did your work well, but there's one thing that got lost in the process. This morning I looked at some notes, these notes that I had, and among the notes are the minutes for the December 18th, 2015 Black Lives Matter Committee. Did you know we had a Black Lives Matter Committee here? I'm wearing the bracelet. Did you know that, Skylar?
I did not.
Reverend Scott he heard a message. He decided to have a brown bag lunch meeting around September the 10th, I think, according to my notes, 2015. And the following Monday, Joyce Levy gave me a call and said that she and I think Coco, you were part of that. I don't know, there were two other women. I don't know who they were. And they asked if I would come and organize the group. I said yes. And so I said 2015. It was 2013.
Okay.
2013. Because in 2015, these are the minutes that I found this morning. And I just want you to know what the mission statement was and what the motto was. Black Lives Matter mission statement. An alliance of people taking action to promote social justice by creating an awareness of racism and its effect. That was the mission statement. And the motto, from courageous conversation to courageous action. We did that for a year. We kind of did it for the second year, and then it disappeared. It turned into something else. The core of racial...
Coalition for Racial Justice.
Yeah. But Black Lives Matter is something that was started here, and you fought for it and you kept it alive. When they tore the flags down and the posters, you put them back up. You stood for what's needed now. And what I think you should do now is embrace Black Lives Matter. Embrace it with your white privilege. You were born with a silver spoon in your mouths. You were born with power. You were born to be heard. You were born to make a difference. You were born to change. And I say that's what you should do. You've heard me say this in the past. This is not a new message for me. Hello, my African sisters.
Hello.
You know, that's not a new message for me. And to the listening audience, if you don't understand, call the church. They'll explain it. Anyone here, if you don't understand, ask someone. They'll explain it to you.
It has to do with belly buttons.
It has to do with, yes, it has to do with your humanity. And Black Lives Matter has to do with your humanity. Because if Black lives don't matter, then all lives cannot matter. Blue lives will not matter. And if you're concerned about Indian lives and Mexican lives and Asian lives, when you heal Black Lives Matters, or let me say it a different way. There's a house on fire. Put the water on the house that's on fire right now. And when their houses are healed, those people will join the fire department, and then they can help put out the rest of the fires. This is the biggest fire going on right now. I'm not saying to dismantle, what's the name of it again?
Dismantle the police forces?
No, the other one.
Dis-
Say it again to me. That
oh,
one.
oh,
Yeah, say it so the audience will hear it.
Coalition for Racial Justice.
Yeah, I'm not saying dismantle it,
I see.
but I am saying promote the words, Black Lives Matter.
By
If
the
I
way,
ha-
we have both of our signs that say now again, for the third time, Black Lives Matter.
I saw it when I drove up. I knew you did that, Scott.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for the posters on the ground, too. I was very proud of you to take that stand in 2013. I was very happy to be here in this church when you did that. Black Lives Matter. I think the reason it didn't stick and the name was changed is because you wanted to reach out to more people and thought that would be a better way to do it. See, but Black Lives Matter is so timely right now. This is the work that has to be done. What I think you should do, since Scott asked me what I think you should do, and I'm not preaching, I don't think, is to make Black Lives Matter personal. If you can't explain what that means in 2 minutes, you need to be educated. How can you get educated? Well, you can read a book. There are many great books on the bestsellers list. One of them is How to Be an Anti-Racist, how to watch your words, watch the things you say, watch what it is you do, find your racism, because you have racism in your hearts, in your body. If you're white, you can't escape it. You were born with that white privilege, and white privilege included aspects of racism. You can't avoid it. So dig it up, uproot it, pull it to the surface. Right here at this church, we have all kind of workshops and classes on racism. Join up. Social justice, the committee is about to fall apart. Nancy Stiefel has been asking for someone to join and be the chairperson. Join up, sign up, educate yourselves, understand your personal involvement, and have a personal reason for working on Black Lives Matter. My personal reason is not for me. I don't need it. I don't care anymore. But I have 69 children in my youth orchestra. I care about it for them and their siblings. And with their siblings, we have probably 100 kids. Get involved in Black Lives Mattering in your life to build up the fire department. So when you have a fire in your house, we can join you. We used to have Sunday Night Film Festival here. You know why it died? It was all about social justice. That's all it was about. But it died because it didn't have people to keep it going. There's work that can be done here before you run out to all the other organizations that are being created and doing good work outside of this church. Think about what you can do, yeah, out there, okay, but also what you can do in here. If you build it, they'll come. And they are going to come. And Black lives are going to come. And you don't want to greet them at the door with a false and insecure smile. You want to greet them with your heart so they will stay with you. We've got this fabulous young man here. We want to keep him, put him to work, and lift him up sincerely. We got a job for you. Got a bunch of jobs for you, Scott. Is it time for me to stop talking?
For the moment.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll stop talking for the moment.
Skylar, back to you.
All right, so what can we do now? As the Reverend Dr. Crystal was referring to, invest in your community. When we say community, this can be church community, it can be your neighborhood community, it can be the community of humans. It needs time, it needs money, and you need to organize. It's not enough that you just get together, but you've got to mobilize, strategize, organize, and whatever other I's I can think of. I don't remember. Also, if you've been in a mass gathering and you are able to, please get a COVID test. You also need to make sure you engage in local and state politics. State government is going to have three basic functions: education, incarceration, and medication. And if you don't do the education one right, you have problems with the other two. I'm a little biased, I'm a school teacher. So. Also, make sure you attend the Indian River Commissioners meetings. The very next one is Tuesday, and they have it on YouTube, so you can watch. I was a little disappointed. I checked out some of the views for the last meeting, which was last week. There were 21 views on YouTube.
150,000 people in the county, and there are 21 views.
Yeah. Also, encourage people to get registered and make sure people vote. And if they're unable to vote, you push, you scream, you kick, and make noise to ensure that people are able to use their constitutional rights to vote. And then this year, in 2020, really important thing for us to do is to make sure we all complete the census, because the census is what is going to allocate political and economic power for the next decade. The government, the federal government is basically a big piggy bank, and they have to figure out where to put those funds. And if they don't know where to put those funds, lots of people are undercounted, so those communities then don't get the money they deserve.
Good list, good list. Crystal, any thoughts about where we are right now?
I'm never without words, but I am at this very moment because I think Schuyler just hit every possible nail on the head.
Okay.
Hooray for me.
You said what?
Hooray for me.
Oh, yeah, hooray. Oh, yes, I do have. Thank you. And that's the clue. That's exactly what I needed. Okay, there's one more thing that I think we should do here, and that is pat yourselves on the back. I think that the kind of work that Unitarians do, you're always doing work. But I don't think you ever stop and take a look at how effective it is and how good it is that you're doing what you're doing. So I think that you should take a look at your history. Read the minutes of the social justice meetings over the years. Pull out the minutes from the choir, from the community, the congregational minutes. Take a look at where you were and how far you've come. I'm saying you, I should say we, because I'm a part of you. We should take a look at where we've come from and feel good about it. Pat ourselves on the back, give ourselves a report card, then put our shoulders back to the grindstone, do some more work, and every now and then, maybe once a year, twice a year, stop and take a look at how well we're doing. And if we're not doing well, then redesign the work that we're doing. I think we need to appreciate who and what we are and promote that.
And let me end on this note. The Unitarian Universal Association, which is about 1,100 congregations almost, for the last 10 years we've devoted a great deal of our national resources to anti-racism, anti-oppression, inclusion. We've made great strides in welcoming, becoming a more multicultural denomination. And our congregation here needs to stay in touch with the denomination and continue to be an anti-racist organization. It means that we're going to be talking about this stuff more than we're talking about some other issues, especially now at this crucial juncture in American life where I really believe, we've reached a positive tipping point. They talk about people being woke. And suddenly, for some reason, this death of George Floyd has awakened many more people. And all the polls indicate this is a moment when we have to focus on this. and not let the moment go by, but take advantage of that positive tipping point. So on that note, I hope to end. The conversation must be continued and furthered, and we will be talking about this issue again and again in the life of our congregation. I want to thank all of the people who are watching us this morning for caring enough to be with us. And can we say amen?
Amen.
Amen.
And join with me, please, no matter where you are, with our closing hymn. If you don't have the words, just hum along. One more step. One more step, we will take one more step, till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word, one more prayer. We will say one more prayer, till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll say one more song. And I leave you today with these words of Catholic saint and activist Dorothy Day. People say, what is the sense of our small effort? They cannot see that we must lay one brick at a time, take one step at a time. A pebble cast into a pond causes ripples that spread out in all directions. Each one of our thoughts, words, and deeds is like that. No one has the right to sit down and feel helpless. There is too much work to do. Amen.